the previous video, we said that HTML consists of two major ideas that are in the name HTML. There's the idea of hypertext and the idea of markup languages. We've already talked about markup languages, and we're going to delve a little bit deeper there. Then we'll take a look at hypertext. HTML typically describes the structure of the document as opposed to describing how the document should be visually displayed or processed. A markup language like HTML is used to mark up or annotate a document so that the computer knows how to differentiate the different pieces of text. So, for example, with our basic text sentences, we could wrap them in p tags so that when they're interpreted, the web browser knows that they should be processed as paragraphs. You can also tell the web browser what parts of the document are images, what parts are tabular data like you would see in a spreadsheet application, and so on. We'll dive deep into tags and real HTML code over the next several videos, but first we need to understand how we got here and why things are the way they are. Many markup languages have been created going all the way back to the 1960s and the start of the information age. However, HTML is likely the most widely used markup language in the world. HTML was originally created by CERN, the French acronym for the European Organization for Nuclear Research. HTML was heavily influenced by an SGML-based language, or Standard Generalized Markup Language. The customized SGML at CERN was used as an in-house document format for scientific research, and originally, HTML was conceived as an improvement on this. HTML was just meant to be a document format for research papers, which is the origin of technical vernacular like page, document, doctype for document type, and so on. In its first iteration, HTML documents were never really intended to be as interactive as we expect them to be today. This is a very key concept to keep in mind, and where remembering history will help you. Web technology has evolved greatly towards creating rich web applications, but in essence, we're still just hacking on top of the original idea of sending around text documents, and that's perfectly okay. Now, before we talk about hypertext on the web, an important distinction needs to be made. The internet refers to the physical infrastructure that is spread across the globe. The network of networks that consist of wires, computers, servers, switches, satellites, and so on that allow us to transport data all over the world at incredibly high speeds. When building websites, it's good to be aware that all of this hardware is there, but it's not much of a concern to us. The World Wide Web, or the web for short, is one particular use case or application of the internet. There are many other use cases or protocols on the internet, such as voice over IP, online gaming, application stores on smartphones, and so on. However, these other pieces of software are using the internet and are not part of the web, which, as web professionals, is our primary concern. Now that we've discussed the markup side of things, let's finish our historical lesson by taking a look at hypertext, which is actually far easier to understand. Remember when we said that HTML was created at CERN? Well, Sir Tim Berners-Lee was the physicist and contractor at CERN that is credited with inventing HTML along with the World Wide Web. In the late 1980s and very early 1990s, when the internet was just coming out of its infancy, there was no HTML, no web browsers, and there certainly weren't any websites as we know them today. When Sir Tim Berners-Lee was working at CERN in the 80s, he wanted to develop a better way of sharing documents, and by drawing inspiration from previously created markup languages, he came up with the first version of HTML. As we said before, HTML was very similar to another markup language called SGML, but Sir Tim Berners-Lee made the very key addition of hypertext. Hypertext is simply the idea of documents that are capable of being linked together. A piece of text or an image in an HTML document can reference another HTML document that the user reading the material can immediately access. In modern times, this is known as a hyperlink, or just a link for short. The idea of hypertext came much earlier than the web, but it was Sir Tim Berners-Lee that connected the ideas of hypertext and markup languages to create the HTML specification, which is used to describe the structure of most web pages today. In 1994, Tim Berners-Lee founded the World Wide Web Consortium, or W3C for short. The W3C is comprised of many companies that, to this day, continue to maintain the HTML specification and further its development for the betterment of the web. Remember, it's not critical that you memorize all of this. However, by understanding some of the history of HTML, you'll have a better frame of reference in understanding the role that HTML plays in the grand scheme of things. In the next video, we'll go back to coding and we'll take a look at some real HTML code.